Okay, so thank you very much, Andrew. We now have our first Drawdown Markham inaugural 2022 event. We are relaunching our monthly meetings following this COVID-19 pandemic. But I do want to start all of our meetings as we do normally by acknowledging those who came before us on this land. So I do say land acknowledgement. So we begin today by acknowledging that we walk upon the traditional territories of Indigenous peoples, and we recognize their history, spirituality, culture, and stewardship of the land. We're grateful to all Indigenous groups for their commitment to protect the land and its resources, and we're committed to reconciliation, partnership, and enhanced understanding. We acknowledge the land we're meeting on here in the Greater Toronto Area is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Wendat, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabe peoples, and is now home to many diverse peoples. We'd also like to acknowledge the land we're on here as at the meeting place of two treaties, the lands of the Mississaugas of the Credit and those of the First Nations of the Williams Treaty. We thank them and other Indigenous peoples for sharing this land with us. We also acknowledge and recognize all of the world's Indigenous peoples as stewards of Mother Earth. Now, I do have a opening presentation just so we can get familiar with the Drawdown Markham organization and our now new relationship with UnityNet. So again, I will share my screen. I do have a presentation to open this up. So again, welcome to this special presentation by Drawdown Markham on this day, the International Day of Peace, or Peace Day, September 21st, 2022. So this is a special presentation that's being made in collaboration with UnityNet International in support of the members of the Unity Network, UnityNet, and our global partnership for regenerative development, which we are putting together right now. I will put some links into the chat just so people have that information about who we are for those who are attending on this Zoom call. So our presentation today is intended to relaunch our monthly meetings of Drawdown Markham's Community Climate Action Hub following the COVID-19 pandemic lockdowns, which started in early 2020. The timing is about right, we feel, especially since Joe Biden recently said the pandemic is over. Of course, here in Canada, the pandemic continues, but most of the restrictions on movement and gatherings have lifted. Our presentation today is going to be done by our special guest, Joan Kerr from the Foundation for Building Sustainable Communities, or FBSC, which has their headquarters in Oshawa, Ontario, just a little bit east of the city of Markham, in the 638 square kilometers of the region of Durham, which contains 15 watersheds. I'm putting the link to FBSC that you see on the screen into the chat. So this event today is being hosted by Drawdown Markham, is primarily being done to support the expansion of our Drawdown Markham Community Climate Action Hub, our Youth Task Force. The Youth Task Force is a forum for taking local action on big issues like climate change and global warming, and engaging youth in both the conversation and the practical implementation of the many solutions that are available to achieve drawdown. Again, in the chat, you will find the Facebook page and other information. So we also want to build a local professionals network, which we call the Human Resource Catalog, which will eventually be expanded into a better platform that we call the Interchange for Peace, VCN, which will integrate a number of different social media, including LinkedIn and other professional and business networks. But for now, we use LinkedIn as the top social media professionals network that we know of, besides other tools like Alignable as well, that you'll find that linked in the chat. So our partnerships in Drawdown Markham are done through the single partnership we have with We Energime Global Cooperation Turtle Island International Civil Society Organization, which has a mandate to deliver life value peace education. So the mission of We Energime Global Cooperation is to transform the human mindset and therefore our relationships from one that is focused on conflict and competition to one that's focused on peace and cooperation. Again, in the chat, you'll find the link you see on the screen. So I mentioned our cooperation with UnityNet International as well. This is one of the organizations I've been creating with other partners here in the GTA, although our partnerships extend globally, especially in the USA, the Caribbean, and in Africa, but not exclusively. As you can see on the screen, UnityNet International is a humanitarian enterprise and global sustainable and regenerative development corporation supporting and promoting the local delivery of open source regenerative climate smart infrastructure set up as life learning gardens that we call Unity Gardens. We're leveraging a unique process for localizing the delivery of the achievement of the global goals, starting with the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals. We're offering services that allow other companies to partner with us and make money while they do that, while supporting the achievement of the 17 global goals, those SDGs, currently until 2030. After 2030, we don't know yet what the global goals will be, but we anticipate that they might be called the Regenerative Development Goals. And so UnityNet International is in the process of establishing a Regenerative Development Professionals Network, both here in Canada and globally, through our network of networks called UnityNet. And you can find that link to UnityNet International in the chat. So one of the most important nodes of the UnityNet is the Indigenous Global Unity Network, or IGUN. The IGUN is a network that is intended to bring together all of the Indigenous communities from around the world to contribute to the achievement of a localized, productive, compassionate, collaborative, regenerative economy that leaves no one behind, which is the future economy that we like to support by leveraging our network of networks to empower our members to implement local solutions for achieving the global goals now and into the future. Again, you will find the links to the Indigenous Global Unity Network in the chat. You can find more about the Global Unity Network by going to the links that you see on the page, as I put them into the chat as well. As you can see, the Global Unity Network has a mandate to showcase global cooperation, currently described as SDG 17, Partnership with the Goals, where we're focused on the local implementation of these global goals, starting with the 17 Sustainable Development Goals that continue until the year 2030. So our network and business structure and the interventions at the community level are also intended to empower marginalized people and communities here in the city of Markham, in the York region, in the Greater Toronto area, in the Don and Rouge watersheds of the Greater Toronto area, here in Southern Ontario, Canada, as a model for communities around the world to do similar things. As you can see on the screen, there are business partnerships in the local communities we work with. We're also helping people develop and implement these local partnerships as a pathway to achieving the global goals, where the intention of the members of these localized networks in the local communities is to leave no one behind as we approach the end of the Sustainable Development Goals in 2030 and enter the period of what we hope will be called the Regenerative Development Goals from 2030 to 2045, as anticipated may happen as demands for such solutions increases, especially among young people who are concerned about their future, as issues like global warming and the loss of biodiversity impact their livelihoods and even their ability to potentially survive these extreme conditions that are starting to appear in some of these communities around the world. Again, you will find the links in the chat as well. Part of the work we do at UnityNet International in partnership with these community organizations like Drawdown Markham is to take the local knowledge of people on the ground in the local communities who know their watersheds and know their local businesses, those organizations, the community leaders, the institutions, as a way to help build the local network of regenerative development professionals and practitioners who we hope will become members of the Global Partnership for Regenerative Development, which is a regenerative development professional network for implementing local practical solutions for helping to achieve the global goals in each one of their own local communities, including right here in the city of Markham, York region. We're in the Greater Toronto area, Ontario, Canada, in the Great Lakes watershed of northeastern Turtle Island, North Oops. So one of the other groups that we are also supporting as well through the Drawdown Markham is the Regenerative Living, Learning and Lifestyle Network, which is a public group and discussion around helping humanity accelerate the transition from current situation of waging wars and competition for implementing solutions to our problems, also described as homo configliere, or a state where all people realize that we are all human beings, part of nature, and therefore must take care of each other and our mother, Mother Earth, a state of consciousness called homo amore universalis, which is an idea that I believe that young people can embrace as they learn how to restore nature, how to restore our communities and our economy to balance out as part of a holistic partnership with all our relations as well. So again, you'll see that link is in the chat. Another partner I want to mention is the Indigenous community created by the Sustainable Development Association in Montreal. Douglas Jack opened our eyes to the concept of relocalization and re-indigenization through his programs of building local community at the grassroots through neighborhood and multi-home integration, cataloging and mapping. There is decades of valuable information at the website that is shown on the screen. We hope the use of their model to develop our Interchange for Peace human resource catalog will be something that we'll use as we move forward as well. I should also mention that we're doing this presentation in collaboration with Andrew Networks, which is in California, in Los Angeles. We call them our Yes, Yes, Yes partner, also our door opening network of the Global Unity Network, UnityNet, so that members of our network are able to discover their inner selves and passions, so they can come together with the people of the network, acting like a net to support the dreams of our members, so they can leverage those passions, transform their visions of a better future for themselves and their communities into a reality that makes sense for both themselves and their communities, however they might define what that better future is collectively, as they seek to work together in partnership and leave no one behind. So Andrew Networks is also host of our weekly Thursday Zoom calls, the IGU Summit events, which we're committed to do weekly until the end of December 2023. Andrew Networks is a brand, a domain name owned by PRXTC Export Trading Company, comprising the various social media channels, including TRN TV, Universal Citizens, Media Networks, Conversations with Andrew Williams Jr., and many more. Andrew Networks donates our UnityNet hosting and promotional support services. Andrew Networks can also rebroadcast any kind of production-ready episodes that focus on sustainable development on their AHIABGA.org domain, which gets redirected to his channels, including the UCIT-TV site. Again, you will find information about Andrew Networks in the chat. One other local organization that we support here in Markham is the South Markham Food Security Network, which was started by a gentleman by the name of Michael Chen, who's also with an organization called Food Forest South Markham, which was a conversation that started in 2020 in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic as a conversation between Michael and the Youth and Parents Association of Markham, or YPAM. Michael was attending Teachers College at the time and was interested in gardens and learning and this idea of learning hubs. Michael was inspired by the TRCA's SNAP projects, where the residents saved water, grew their own edible fruit trees, and took ownership of their parks. He said to me at that time, I'd like to see something similar in South Markham. So I introduced Michael to our Community Sustainability Working Group of Science for Peace, which also hosts Drawdown Markham. I told him that we were working in partnership with We Energize Global Operation Turtle Island and their Go Local campaign for community resilience and adaptation. And we're working in support of the UN Decade for Ecosystem Restoration, 2021 to 2030. And you can see in the chat some of the links to these organizations that I mentioned. So I wanted to mention as well that Drawdown Markham is an essential part of the Markham INAB Collaborative, our local interfaith neighborhood academic and business collaborative that's part of UnityNet GTA, intended to empower the local humanitarian entrepreneurs who will be implementing their holistic collaborative and cooperative community Unity Garden Learning Center spaces in all the local communities of the City of Markham and York Region in the Greater Toronto area as well. And I will put a link to the Markham INET Collaborative as well in the chat. I want to mention UnityNet GTA brings together all 25 municipalities of the Greater Toronto area to work together to empower our young female and feminist humanitarian entrepreneurs who will be implementing the localized solutions to achieving the global goals through their community-based enterprises and businesses, and where the intention is to leave no one behind in each one of those 25 local communities in the Greater Toronto area and in Ontario, Canada, Turtle Island, here in the Great Lakes watershed north of Lake Ontario. Again, you'll find a link to these groups in the chat. Of course, UnityNet GTA is part of UnityNet Ontario, which is a new provincial organization, the first in Canada, which also includes UnityNet Gov, Greater Ottawa Valley, a similar network where we also want to plant a tree of peace and reconciliation, implement our UnityNet programs of localization and the community interventions to help to create these localized empowerment networks for the local humanitarian entrepreneurs who are implementing these open source climate smart infrastructure solutions as community Unity Garden learning centers that will teach all the young people and families in their local communities how to implement the local regenerative solutions for achieving the global goals through their businesses as part of a local, regional, provincial, national, and international empowerment network of networks we call UnityNet. So I mentioned briefly UnityNet Canada as well. It's intended to establish similar provincial and territorial networks across Canada in the future. Of course, right now we're focused on Ontario because this is where we live, and the best way to work and move forward quickly is to focus on the local, but think globally when considering solutions that will help to create a better world for the next generations. Again, you'll find links to these networks in our chat. So the final chapter, partner network I'd like to mention as well is UnityNet Turtle Island, which encompasses UnityNet Canada, the USA, the Caribbean, Mexico, Central America, and even South America by treaty, and is intended to help bring together people of all cultures across both continents of the Americas, but especially as we engage in dialogue and possible partnership with the Indigenous peoples of the Americas and worldwide, as we consider partnerships between people and local communities on continents like Africa, Eurasia, and Oceania, as a way to empower local communities to take action to implement the local solutions to achieving the global goals locally through their community-based enterprises and businesses. So again, you will find links in the chat for UnityNet Turtle Island discussion group. But on this final slide, I come full circle back to Drawdown Markham, where I'd like to emphasize our partnership with UnityNet, where we can now consider to implement partnerships in any other local community in the world as a way to implement local open source regenerative climate smart infrastructure and the related enterprises and learning programs for young people and families as we move forward toward a globalized, compassionate, collaborative, regenerative economy that leaves no one behind as we approach 2030 and the end of the SDGs, and where we also seek ways to learn about solutions to our various predicaments like climate change and biodiversity and energy and housing and food security and reliable income, and where we can also find solutions to all of these problems in our own local communities, if only we begin to develop partnerships, not only locally, but globally as well, by celebrating our diversity and our humanity and learning how to be compassionate entrepreneurs who have the knowledge, the skills, and the empathy to change the future of our global economy, to serve all people in all of the natural world equally. So thank you very much. This was the quick opening. We will now have our guest speaker, Joan Kerr, doing her presentation. Joan, now the ball is in your court as we move forward. I will stop my presentation.
Sure, thank you. So should I keep my video off? Would that be better, maybe?
Oh, we'd love
We'll
to
see.
see you,
No.
Joan.
Yeah,
Okay.
please give us everything.
There we go.
There we go. I'll turn off my video though, so the
Okay.
center point of the show becomes Joan.
All right. I like that. Let's see if I can share my screen. And anyone that knows me knows how. No. Oh, yes. Here we go. Well, what do you know? Share. Ooh, is that on? Yes.
Yeah,
You can
looks
see?
good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fabulous, fabulous. Okay. So my name, thank you, Lloyd. Thank you.
You know what?
Andrew.
We have your, sorry to interrupt. We have your
Yeah.
entire screen, your entire computer, not just the presentation.
Oh,
Maybe put it in presenters mode.
okay. Where is that? I've never had that before. I told
Well,
you
also-
whenever.
On the right-hand side, if you can click that arrow, it'll close out the navigation so that you'll get a full screen there as well.
Okay. So the right-hand side.
And down to the middle, you see a little arrow. Let's see here.
Move down. Move the arrow down until it's over the middle of that bar, the
Yeah.
vertical bar.
Oh, I see the things were in. Well, why don't I stop and maybe I go to another screen because I had more than one in case, because I always anticipate these things. Share screen. And okay. So if oh, it says it's here already. Why is it every time I do this, it happens? Okay, so I don't see an arrow.
So go halfway down,
Mm-hmm.
down. Yeah, continue going down. No, there's an
Hold
arrow.
on, hold on. Okay. Oh, yes. Okay.
Let me see. Should say presenters mode.
You're in the wrong column. If you go to the left, Joan, you'll see a
Yes.
small
Right
arrow
there.
right there.
Yeah,
Yes.
right there.
Click.
Yeah,
There you go.
There we-
Holy.
All right.
Jeez. I've never had that happen to me before, but you know, these things happen to me all the time.
all the time. They
All
happen to everybody.
All right. Okay. There we go. Can see okay now?
Perfect.
Well, it's not a full
Perfect.
page, so we do see it. Yes.
Okay, but nothing else, right? But not that I have anything to hide. So
No,
you
but
know, my
that's the
life-
only. Yes, that's the only app
Yeah.
going.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, so thank you, Lloyd. Thank you, Andrew, and welcome everyone. Stephanie, you and I work together, so that's great. As Lloyd said, my name is Joan Kerr, and I'm an entrepreneur, an artist. I'm hoping all the time that I'm an artist, and artistic anyway, and a community leader. I founded the Foundation for Building Sustainable Communities in 2003, and I'll talk about that in a bit, but we refer to it as FBSC. I have a diploma in horticulture from the University of Guelph some years ago. Gosh, I can't even remember. I'm getting old. And I'm currently the vice president of the IEEE Smart Village North American Working Group, as well as the international service chair for the Rotary E-Club Smart Village, Silicon Valley. And so that's a newly appointed position, 60 days, I guess. So let's go to the next one. So I'll just tell you, I'm going to go through this really quick because what we want to talk about is what we want to do. But I think it's good that you have an understanding of who we are and how we came to these programs. So as I said, the foundation was incorporated in 2003, and our vision was actually to have a healthy planet where everyone and everything can prosper. That was our big vision. It was like, why can't this happen? You know, it's so easy. And so we were to learn that it wasn't so easy, but we thought good news will travel fast, but it didn't. But people needed a lot of education in order to do that. We do projects that we thought are fun and easy ways to become environmental And we have been accredited with the UN accreditation of special status in consultation for, it's called consultative status for the Sustainable Development Goals. So we're pretty happy about that. Our mandate is to preserve and repair the environment, and also to ameliorate the living conditions of the underprivileged. Our mission is to cultivate sustainable solutions that transform communities. And we have 3 goals. One is to create events that promote sustainable development principles. 2 is to design and develop education programs that lead to self-sufficiency and healthy lifestyles. And 3, to showcase projects, people, and technologies to inspire people to learn and to do actions. From 2005 to 2019, our strategy was to go out there and do fairs and events, fun things that people could learn how to do, simple acts that would lead to environmental sustainability. So we hosted a number of fairs, from conservation, Earth Day, Earth Hour, do-it-yourself showcase, vintage teas. We had a demonstration and teaching garden for 12 years, and everything was around very inclusive, fun, and simple to do actions. Those went on. We had over 35,000 people in person visit our different events over those years. And we had an online project by Heritage Canada that we had over 1 million views and participation for a heritage project that we did for them. But in 2019, when COVID was, we kind of knew COVID was happening. Because of some other things that I was involved with, we were supposed to go to a conference, and the CEO said, oh, there's, rumors that there's this disease that was going around, and should we cancel the event, which was to be in March? So we had that conversation all along. And after that, we decided that we would close the garden in 2020, even though we stopped doing it in 2019 because garden season is in the spring. So we decided that we would close it because the garden did not have, and we couldn't do face-to-face events anyway. It was too cumbersome for us to do it. And so we thought, okay, this is a great time to maybe stop and go to our next phase. So we thought we did a good job and had a lot of feedback, positive feedback about our project. So we thought, oh, well, we'll do the same things, but reimagine them and look at how we go forward, taking some of the feedback that we have gotten from the events and from the garden over all of those years, and incorporate them into more formal programs. So we came up with the that we would focus on education, because that was, people asked us about doing formal education for a very long time, and we had not done it, but COVID gave us a chance to really formalize it. We had thought about it a lot, but like I said, the COVID situation gave us the time to think about, can we do it? How can we do it? And why did we want to do it? And to continue our engagement programs, but maybe more intense programs. And of course, we have to focus on the environment. That's what we love to do. So our education program, we have 2 specific programs. One is the Victory Garden Institute, which look at, I'll talk about that in a second, but I'll talk very quickly about the Virtual School of Internet Governance. That is a separate branded program that is supported by industry. It is about internet governance. Internet governance is looking at the practices and standards of using the internet, what governs the internet. And some of you know that I've been heavily involved in ICANN, which is the internet governing body. and I was a chair for the not-for-profit constituency group for 3 years and a membership chair for another 3. And so we've over 600 students to date. We have other students registered now, have graduated from that program, and we started that program in 2020. We conceptualized it in May 2020 and launched it in September 2020, and it's just been going nonstop since then. We offer programs in English, Spanish, and French. We're hoping to have Arabic next, and possibly Chinese. So we're negotiating those. So that's the internet governance. The Victory Garden Institute, any of you that knows me know that I love everything Victory Garden. I'm obsessed with Victory Gardens. And the reason is because I think it really solves a problem in terms of everyday people, where you can grow your food, learn how to can, learn how to store, preserve, all of those things. And there's a component of entrepreneurship to it as well. So we're going to be offering, it will be opened in 2023 with courses to teach people how to grow their own food as well. Our engagement programs is we're not going to be doing so much. We will be still doing our fairs, but we have a program and partnering with the Climate Smart Victory Garden in GTA as a first project to do something called Foodscapes, where we're introducing people to their communities, what's involved in their community, who's doing what. And the whole idea is to inspire people to want to get to know their community, to maybe even support their community, but most importantly, to become knowledgeable in what's around them and who they can work with. And Stephanie is working with me really intensely. She's done such an amazing job in terms of the research, and now we have to refine some of that research, but what she's really done is point out how many people are doing such amazing things and no one is actually showcasing it. So we're taking that role to showcase those projects. And I say projects because we're focusing on the 50 kilometer area, 100 kilometer area, sort of, and on the spectrum, all of those programs people then can visit by public transportation, mostly bicycles. Like we've really thought about it, not just in terms of information and knowledge, but also how do you get there? What do you do? So hopefully we'll get some support for that. Of course, everything that we do, we want people to end up growing food and to become knowledgeable and start their own Victory Garden. So that's the goal of that engagement. And we'll continue, like I said, to do our other engagements as COVID it gets minimized, I guess. But right now it's not on the radar because the face-to-face is very, very hard to do. For the environment, we have 2 programs. One is called the AHIABGA Initiative, a phenomenal program that we came up with that look at how to grow food in sheltered gardens. And we call them sheltered gardens. Energy sheds is what the US government is using. And basically, we're doing some research on what plants will grow best in sheltered gardens. But the biggest part of that is to also have habitats for pollination. And we're going to be talking about this particular program more intensely for this presentation, something called the Victory Forests, where we are planting trees all over the world. And so we want to collaborate with communities all over the world, and we can do that. As I said before, I am the International Service Chair for the Rotary E-Club Silicon Valley Smart Village. And we can do programs. We're supposed to report on programs, which we'll do as well. But we want to do our own projects. So I propose that we have a tree planting project. And so I spoke with Lloyd about, because we've been working together probably 10 years, maybe even more. Lloyd, you'd have to correct me on that. I thought, well, start in your own community and start the project in your own community to grow trees, plant trees and grow them and get the community involved. So that's what I wanted to speak to Drawdown Markham about. We have done them before. And I know that you guys have a long history of doing planting. So that's what we're going to be doing. Now, before we have any discussion, I just quickly wanted to just focus. I don't know if this will come up. Oh, it does come up. So this is the community reforestation and planting tree project that I'm talking about. And it's a partnership between Silicon Valley and Smart Village. I already told you I took the course from the UN that connect land use to climate change and biodiversity. So I'm pretty happy with that. So our goals for this planting trees is to really promote the Silicon Valley. We want to do that because they do good work, and educate the public about the importance of trees and to participate in the United Nations International Day of Forests, which is March 21st. So the education side of it would begin. Obviously, we can't plant trees in Ontario. And so we want to do it because forests are an essential part of this whole issue of climate change. And that's something we can do. We can, I often say to people, don't think of the whole problem. Think of a solution of something you can do. And so this is something I think that we can do, and we can do a lot of it. Many of you know all about why we have this problem. We have to look at what's happening in the atmosphere and the greenhouse gas cycle and how it's affecting everything, the oceans, the soil, the air, everything. And so we want people to become aware of how this all works. And this particular graphic is from the US government. And also, what can we do? I mean, I'm involved in a lot of clean technologies, having working with IEEE Smart Village. And so these are what we're trying to achieve, these goals. And so this is what the program will be about. And so today I'd like to invite the former committee, a special committee, International Service Committee that involves people from the community, from the Rotary, from Smart Village, from each community that will, even local Rotaries, by the way, and then any community group that wants to plant trees. And of course, we all have to collaborate to start working with the problem and to raise awareness. I find, and education is one of the biggest downfall of what we do. People just, you think there's so much information when you're in that sector, and yet it just doesn't get translated into actions. And so we really have to start doing projects and people see and educate them together, because if we don't work together, it's not going to get done. And so today I'd like to discuss a way forward and who would like to be involved, and if you'd like to be involved, and answer any questions. Thanks.
So thank you very much, Joan. This is awesome. I think we probably on this call would say, yes, we're going to put up our hand and say, yes, we want to partner with Joan, because Joan's a great lady that's doing work that I think has inspired, definitely has inspired myself to move forward and do the work that I'm doing, obviously through Drawdown Markham, but also through the business groups that we're creating to support this global network, which is essentially being built as a platform that will allow for the delivery of that education and training, but also the community engagement to really get communities involved in these discussions at the local level, so they can better understand their own local communities and what they can do themselves to achieve these objectives, these goals, right? We've got 17 goals, and everybody's sort of looking at governments or looking at industry, looking at the corporations, looking at others to solve these problems for them, rather than saying we can do this through local partnerships, and we can as long as we're just able to come together. And that's the whole objective of the tree planting of the trees of peace and reconciliation, is actually intended to create these spaces in our communities where everybody will come together, put aside their differences, and just say, come together as human beings. Let's talk about solutions. Let's just put aside our politics, put aside our religious, whatever, but come together and say, look, we have this problem of homelessness in our community. We have this problem of people are hungry. We have this problem of erosion of our lands because there's flooding or whatever. What can we do? And so this is the idea of the Unity Gardens that we build around. Basically, the process is actually establish what we call a youth peace garden first, and plant a tree of peace and reconciliation in the youth peace garden, and then transform that youth peace garden into a Unity Garden, and eventually a learning space in the community that partners with all of the schools, partners with all of the organizations, partners with the Chamber of Commerce, partners with the elected leaders. This HEPTA Matrix partnership template that we developed for Drawdown Markham originally, which we can now leverage to teach people how to create partnerships in their local communities, or at least engage in that conversation and say, here's the research you need to do in your local community to figure out what are the people, just like what Stephanie's doing, of course. What are people doing already in their local community? Just engage with them in the conversation.
I think there's a hand up. I think I thought I
Erwan?
saw one.
Mm-hmm. Erwan, did you want to unmute yourself?
Yeah, thank you, John, for the presentation. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. No worries.
The question is, trying to find out what would be the best strategy as far as planting trees. Are we just simply trying to get the CO2 and so on, oxygen relationship, or is there any strategy that you suggest in terms of this environmental impact? Would that be food strategy at the same time, food security, or is it the one with the absorbing CO2 is the most, for example?
So the first answer is yes. We've always tried to do things that are fun. So getting communities together. And so we don't necessarily promote things like, oh, you're going to decrease CO2. We talk about community getting together, and then the impact and the positive impact is what happens, right? So what I thought that we could do is form a committee, and the committee decides what it is in their community that they would like to promote. So some might just say we want to do community events. Another community might say we want to focus on the CO2. So make it as local as possible for each community, because I very much believe that not one model always fits everything. And so one of the discussions I would hope that we would have is, in addition to reducing CO2 is that there are discussions around food forests as well in different communities. But again, that the local community makes that decision.
Thank you. And is there any, like, I was wondering about the consideration in terms of different climate and so on?
Right. That's why I said, yeah, that's why it's preferable that the local community. Oh, should I stop my? Oh, okay. Thanks. Yes, it's very important that everyone understands that not, and I think that's part of the problem is that somebody comes up with a great model that fits that a community had, and then they, oh, so-and-so did it, so you do it. Well, it's not going to work in the another community. There's different people, there's different temperature, there's different mindsets. There, I mean, never mind the physical side of it, there's also the social side of it.
But when we're considering like a poor community, like very poor, we're talking about the African rural area. Is that
any of them? One of the avenues that's open to me is the fact that I am the international service chair for Rotary, and we can work with Rotary. They have 1.1 million volunteers, so we can work with the Rotary to help local communities to plant trees. That's the first thing. Smart Village, we have access to 440,000 members of IEEE as a whole who are, we can also work with. So in terms of human resources, we can put this together. Again, the communities, it's very important that it comes from the local community. Yes, we want to plant 5 trees on the boulevard because it's all concrete. That's a decision that the community makes. Or they may say, you know, in a rural area, certain trees have been cut down and they need to be replaced. Okay, so that's what we do. I think the solutions should be that the community decides, and we can put it together in terms of the campaign.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yep. Your presentation has been also being followed on Facebook in our AHIABGA network group. Dr. Kelly had comments in the chat there. So Dr. Kelly, could you unmute and introduce yourself, and perhaps you could let us know where you're from and you can address this then. Thank you so much, Dr. Kelly.
Sure, great. Thank you for meeting me here today. And thank you, Lloyd, for inviting me. I'm in Pueblo, Colorado, just 100 miles south of Denver and 100 miles north of New Mexico. So we're in a really unique agricultural region, but we're also having water rights crises of many kinds. So I love your comments and believe that it's true to need a contextualized solution, but that you may have learned from your trials and errors, critical feedback that will help us save years of the same fail forward. And so I'm eager to collect that kind of data at the state level and international level. I'm currently doing a farm to school assessment and, you know, identifying our potential for that 10-year plan to really make a difference. And it takes that kind of systems thinking and planning ahead and kind of that honeybee in between all the nonprofits and the business partners and people with various human capital resources to really activate the kind of solutions that will be long-term.
Yeah, well, thank you. I think, like, as you said, it's we learned a lot. I've been involved in the environmental movement for most of my life when people thought I was crazy, and now they think I'm smart, you know, so, you know, you go through the whole thing, right? But the thing was that my heart was always with holistic thinking, with even before they came up with sustainable development. I always thought about that you had to approach things. You know, it's very interesting. When I was very young, someone said to me that I was working with a doctor, and people would talk to me, and you know, they were unhappy with their married lives, and you can say, how does this all fit together? I'm going to tell you how it fits together. And I said to an older lady one day, and I said, why do people get married if they're so unhappy? Because, you know, very romantic, you know, thinking, right? And I was like, it just makes sense to me, because I was sort of like that romantic fairy tale kind of person that wanted to fall in love. And all I'm hearing all these older people, I call them old people, but they were in their 40s and 50s. And so she said to me something that really influenced me a lot. She said, many people think about their wedding days, but they never think about their marriage. And I said to her, what do you mean? Because, you know, you think it's the same thing, right? And she says, people don't think about how things connect together, that to be in love, you have to be lovable. To be respected, you have to respect. And she went through the whole thing. And so I started to think in a systems way. But I can tell you also that I've made a lot of mistakes, because you do when you're learning. And one of the things that I learned is it's best to talk to people and see what their issues are. And a lot of times people in their own community already have solutions. They just need a hand up.
Well, that's very indicative of what I've been reading about our Justice 40 initiative in the United States to try to spread out some of those investments to minorities in a more equitable way. And I don't know if it's empty promises until we get these showcase projects in the next few years, right? And so I was disappointed. We recently applied for a large grant for some industrial hemp and environmental outreach to minorities about climate smart tactics. And really, we didn't have a chance because we didn't have a mega conglomerate partner when I looked at all the other awardees. And so it's a very misbalanced game, understanding funding. That was one of the questions I asked in the chat at the Facebook side was, do you have a good balance between grants and investments? How do you keep it alive? We have an example of a peace garden that's kind of overgrown from the 1990s, and I don't know its history, you know, and it's hard to know how to prevent those kind of mishaps.
So are you talking about you applied for the USDA fund that was just closed
Yes,
in
ma'am.
September?
Partnerships for climate smart commodities.
Right. So you had to include the Justice 40 in it, but I think that it's like anything else. It's all the big guys. Okay, just include this, that you're addressing it. It's not that it's the community groups. Yeah, I understand what you mean, but I think that particular program was focused on teaching farmers about climate smart practices.
Yes, and I do apologize. I have a company, Perpetual Harvest, and I do environmental education and searching to show the similarities between gardening and farming. So I'm also very akin to the Victory Garden movement and been working to bring hydroponics and aquaponics awareness to the youth and circular economy concepts.
Yeah. Well, you can join our North American working group if you like. I'd like to invite you to be part of that. That's not FBSC, but I'm the chair for that as well. So if you send me your email, we can invite you. And because in that program, they will fund North American groups, especially if they're Native. $25,000 at the onset, and then up to $200,000 at the second phase. For it has to have something to do with technology, all three: technology, empowerment, education, and it has to be a business.
Yeah, so I did meet Kelly actually many years ago. I was introduced to her through a mutual contact when we were talking about all this biochar stuff many years back. And I believe it was her father that was trying to grow hemp or cannabis actually at the time in Colorado. And he was looking at utilizing biochar as, I think, the growth media substrate for that. And probably you heard about the work that was being done in Alberta with those aquaponics systems that Dr. Savadov was doing, demonstrating.
So Lloyd,
my connection
you
to
also,
Kelly.
Lloyd, you also have another guest, Titus Omajo. So perhaps you'd like to acknowledge that and see if he has a question. I know he did put comments in chat. I'm not sure if he'd like to unmute and introduce himself, but now would be that time.
Yep. Titus, would you like to introduce yourself as well? You can turn on your video if you like, or...
Okay. Greetings, everyone. It's 8 p.m. my time, Nigeria. Joining from Abuja. Yeah. So nice to be in your midst today, and happy International Peace Day 2022. Okay, I'm the communication lead of Young Leaders' Rights and Patriotic Initiative of Nigeria. It's a youth NGO that's based with advocating patriotism among youth. Because ours is a society that have got it very wrong when it comes to leadership. And we, the younger generation, we are trying to educate the youth on the need of patriotism and on the need to put the country first before our individual interests. That is, we go from campus to campus, we educate youth on the need to love their country, because when you love your country, you will not indulge in criminal activity. You will try to do something for the collective interest of your society. So I look forward to collaboration. I don't know if there is any organization that will work around my thematic area, that work around advocacy and how to lift youth from crime to doing something productive, on how to make youth a better members of their society. I would love to partner. I've dropped my email in the chat box and also my WhatsApp phone number. So I look forward to future partnership and collaboration. Thank you, and have a good night.
Yes. You know, Titus, also in the chat, I put my contact information, but as you're in Abuja, you may want to go to the website of the World Humanitarian Organization for Peace and Equity. It's based in Lagos, but they do have access on their website for you to register and identify what your interests are. So I'd recommend you take advantage of that opportunity.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much. I'm grateful for that.
Thank you. And also, Titus, years ago when I was much younger, more youthful.
Okay.
So we're talking about 1991, 92. I ran a program for youth at risk youth it was called. And these were kids that had done crimes. And instead of doing the advocacy work, because I was an advocate for other things as well, but we're not involved in advocacy. We can't be by Canadian because of our status. What we do is create projects that are very mindful of being getting youth involved in doing something that gives them hope, because a lot of times kids, they've lost hope.
Yes.
And have no direction. So having a project that can give them that is probably something you could look at. So farming is one of them, and kids don't necessarily want to do farming, especially in Africa. That's what I've found out, in South Asia. Forget North America. So how we've sort of addressed that is really bringing in the technology side of it. And they're very attracted to that.
Okay, thank you very much, Joanne. Like, trying to engage the youth to go a long way in discouraging them from criminal activity. So if there will be any partnership to at least empower few youth into farming, because this is raining period in Nigeria and this is farming period. People are going into farming. We would like to engage in such project. So if there's any way we can partner and to bring improved seeds, plantation of cashew nuts and some other nuts, or fishery, so many things that will keep them away from criminal activity. My organization, we are open to partnership. And if there's any appropriate place we can seek for funding, we're also looking out to that. So the most important thing is to get them engaged, because the major problem we face in Nigeria presently is unemployment. And when the youth are not actively engaged, they result into criminality, kidnapping, banditry. The country is overwhelmed with criminal activity presently, but we try to see the little we can do in our space to bring about peace. So I'm open to partnership. I'm open to funding opportunity, and so thank you.
Yeah, I think that when you're looking for funding, many organizations that give funding is going to look at what is it that you're trying to achieve, and they don't necessarily fund advocacy work. So that's something to keep in mind when you're looking.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Well,
The funding will be tailored towards engaging unemployed youth, and engaging them. It will be like a community project, but it will be starting up business for them, and there is going to be a pitch of their idea. The idea that is more scalable will be found, and it will make them to become a better person. Like we've gone to campuses. We teach them skills like soap making, shoe making, bead making, makeup for the female gender and the likes. This after school, even if they can't get employment, they use those skills to get work for themselves.
Right.
Not necessarily, yes.
So one of the things that you may want to look at is saying, our organization existed for, let's say, 5 years. I don't know how long you're around. These are examples. And throughout that time, we've identified that these issues are constant. So, youth have too much free time. And with that free time and energy, this is what they're doing. So we've come up with this project to address that. So you're actually using what you've found out from your advocacy work so that it stays away from advocacy, but because of the advocacy, you've identified those issues and then come up with what your solution is. And the other thing that people do when they're applying for funding is they forget that the funder wants to know what that money is going to be used for and what the sustainable impact will be.
Impact, yes.
So, is beads might be a good thing, but what is the market for that? How will that be? Is that something that's a hobby and they're making a little bit of money, or do they want to have a business around it and they also happen to enjoy it? So, they're very subtle things, but, look at it from the funder point of view. That would be my suggestions.
Okay. So like, so many youths are idle presently, and they actually need to get engaged in doing something. It will serve as a form of livelihood for them. They will use that money to better their life, and also some of those businesses can also employ people that are unemployed. It's a chain reaction. Like, okay, when you are able to empower one person, that person in turn can empower 5 to 6 persons. The number of unemployment reduces. Yes, it's to make them a better person.
Yeah. So one of the things we did,
idea. Yes.
Yeah. one of the things we did when we were doing the at-risk youth, we went to the police and asked the police departments and asked them for their help in terms of mentoring and identifying what the solutions could be from a legal point of view.
Okay.
And so that they were also part of the solution, so that the youth, there was not this animosity and conflict all the time between youth and the police because they've committed a crime, but that they, you know, they're dialoguing so that they understand from another point of view. Anyway, these are some of the things that we did. So, because I tend to look at things from a holistic point of view, right? So.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. Yeah, as a founder, you try to know how the fund will be used. It's fine. It's normal.
It's not just the use,
Yeah.
because there is that question: what is the use of funds? But I think when the criteria is being analyzed, it's what is going to be the impact. Because you can always say
The
it's
impact.
going,
Okay.
Yeah.
The impact. Basically, the impact is to take youth from the street to make
No, you don't
them.
have to answer right now. I'm just saying that these are
Okay,
things for
okay,
you
okay,
to
okay. I
She's
get,
saying
I
that
get,
when
I get.
you're writing a proposal for funding,
Okay,
make sure
okay,
that you
yes, yes.
consider to tell them exactly what the impact is.
Sure. It's okay. Noted.
And on
Okay,
that
thank
note,
you.
you might have to collect a little bit of data ahead of that funding to prove you are valid to the funder. That's the
To
catch-22.
prove your intervention is actually going to achieve what you say it's going to.
So just
okay,
hosting a meeting and having a guest list where they sign in is valuable data for you later.
Okay,
So I
Joanne.
did see there's one more person on the call. Mia Sho Olmsted has come on and we'd like to ask if she can introduce herself as well.
Sure. Hi.
Hello.
It's pronounced Maya, like Jeremiah was a bullfrog. And, and I'm mostly just here for deep listening.
Any
And where are you located?
Well, at the moment, I'm currently located in New Orleans, which is the traditional territories of the Chamacha peoples. But normally I'm located in Victoria, Canada on the West Coast. So.
Well, Jeremiah was a friend of mine.
Right? It's an easy mnemonic.
I live in Canada as well.
Yes. Wonderful.
I'm getting some feedback. I think you may have two things open. Oh, maybe not. Well, welcome anyway. Any observations from our discussions?
I'm not, I've only been here for just a few minutes, so I'm not sure that I'm really qualified to make too many observations. I'm really deeply interested in the gender lens space and youth empowerment space. I think that those are probably my two primary interests in being here. Because I'm from Canada, there's automatically, I think, if you're working in this space, a desire for Indigenous sovereignty and Indigenous leadership. So those are the two areas that I feel I can add to and contribute as a non-Indigenous person. And otherwise, I'm really genuinely just here to listen and learn.
Wonderful.
Thank you for calling me up. I feel welcomed. Thank you.
And you can put your information into the chat. We'll continue the conversation, invite you into our network so we can have ongoing discussions, conversations, and invite you to our future events, because we do have an event every Thursday. I mentioned it during the opening. Obviously you weren't there, but our Indigenous Global Unity Summit events every Thursday that are also hosted by Andrew, who is now at the center of my screen. And then we also are having what we call Youth Peace Week events coming up from October 4th, which is Global Cooperation Day, until October 16th, which is World Food Day. And all those days between, we are having a number of different events. I'm actually putting together a whole series of Eventbrite pages for those events, which we're hoping to have every year. So I'm seeing it's now 3:24 in the afternoon. I don't know if anybody else would like to say a few words.
May I say something also?
Yes, go ahead. Erwin.
Talking about this youth and planting and so on, another dimension that I think we need to be aware about the youth labor for the very young, supposed to be illegal. So, is that one possible solution would be to plant a garden around the house of the parent, and then so that the youth can participate in growing, for example, in terms of agriculture, or maybe even fishing and all other things, so that they are not really against the law of youth labor, but they are learning in their parent environment, so that at the same time they are productive. Should we also encourage that kind of setting?
Well, this is actually part of the reason why we're creating what we call the Unity Gardens. So the Unity Gardens as learning spaces in the community are intended for families to be able to come to these spaces and learn, sort of as part of after school programs, but also potentially by the schools and the teachers in the local schools who can use those spaces as well as part of the curriculum, where they're able to then engage the youth in this learning about growing and learning about nature and learning about these solutions that exist that maybe they don't know about, but where we can have a shared space that families can use. And so we're not asking the children to be laborers, we're asking them to learn by doing and in these spaces.
Also, the Victory Garden, Home Victory Gardens is a good way for families to work together. I'll tell you a quick story. When we had our garden, it was 6 acres, and we had this youth that was always talking about how he was going to change the world and it was blah 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 blah, but didn't do anything. So one day he was on Facebook, and I said to him, "Why don't you come to our garden and do something?" And no one has ever asked him to do something. And so he came up and he visited. And he says, "Well, it's nice of you to invite me, but I don't garden. I don't know what to do." So I went into the greenhouse and I got him a shed and a fork, and I said, "Here's your space. Start to dig. You can start like that." And so he goes, "Oh, okay." So I marked it out for him and I told him to dig. He says, "Well, what do I plant?" I said, "Well, you go home and you ask your family what do they like to eat, and you come back with the list and we will plant what they wanted." So anyway, he actually did follow through. He did it. And so he planted and he designed it with stones. And I mean, he really got into this, and we kept praising him. And anyway, I hadn't been up to the garden in 6 weeks, and I went up and he happened to be there. He goes, John, I need to talk to you." And I thought, oh God, what happened now? And so he says, "Come and see my garden." And so I look at his garden and it was lush. And he says, "You know what happened yesterday?" So this was Monday morning. He says, "My parents didn't know what to cook." And I said to him, why don't we go to the garden and pick some vegetables and design our dinner on a Sunday around it? And that's what, and he, oh, who's that? And he was so thrilled that not just his parents were so impressed with the fact that he had dug this garden, had planted it, had planned it, and the family was coming, and he was like the king, that's how he saw himself. He says, "I'm the king. I got my family to choose the vegetables." And he was so proud of that. So, step by step by step, but he wanted to, "Oh, I don't know how to do it." And I'm one of those no nonsense persons, I don't care who you are. Here, start working. And so, especially with at-risk youth, you have to be very stern with them with a compassionate hand. So it's a fine line, but people just need to jump in and do things instead of like planning and planning and talking and planning and then talking again and maybe talk about the plan and then plan to talk again, you know, like, and we have to get past that. So, but it's very true. It starts with the family, and as long as we become inclusive and not define what a family is in terms of, you know, what it, because different people have different meanings. Just, you know, people who live together or whatever, so that it's inclusive of different ways of thinking and stuff. Just focusing on the act, not other things. So we
Well,
always
this
say
is
home
part of-
gardens.
This is part of the reason why we're also saying what we want to do in these unity gardens is celebrate the diversity.
Yeah.
To show that there is all sorts of ways of living and we're all different, and our differences are what's going to bring us together. And this actually comes from our one of our colleagues in South Africa, who came up with this idea that we can come together through our diversity and the celebrations thereof. And I think that fits into your philosophy, Joan.
Yeah, for
Having
sure.
fun.
Yes, that's
Yeah, I
right. I
think-
mean, sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead, John.
I'll let you speak first. I just want to say that
Well,
I
I
just
was
want to talk
sounding,
about a way
we-
forward.
Yeah, well, talking about way forward, maybe we have to look a lot of this in terms of integrated system. When
Mhm.
we know that sometimes poor children go to school just because they have food in the school. Otherwise, they don't want to go to school. The parent encourages them to go to school because they eat there. Otherwise, at home they don't eat. And then
Mhm.
sometimes when they want to play, nobody really watch them. And
Mhm.
so if we have a system, even maybe to try on, maybe a soup kitchen together with my community garden, and then with providing the food for the local people, if necessary, we just go grab some of the land or lease some of the land. For those who doesn't have land, let them grow on their own and lease them. That's why the system of this providing the seed and fertilizer, and if in fact the labor, maybe we can even pay their labor if they work on the land. These are in some situation where when they have harvest, they can actually sell, and then they get part of the harvest. Even though the money from the investor can be returned back, they still have a lot of money to hopefully to get above the poverty level. So what I'm saying here, maybe we have to go deeper than simply looking at the garden. What kind of, we have to see how the affecting the education, affecting the growth, the safety of this child youth. And so I think this is something to me is
Well, again,
encouraging.
coming back to that idea of the families and how do we bring the youth and get them fed in the schools, is to not just have the gardens, but also to incorporate these what we call the climate smart kitchens into those communities and the learning spaces. So we not only have the gardens as learning spaces, but also the kitchens as places not just to cook, but also to eat, to have fun, and to engage with other members of the community in these learning spaces that can be dynamic and include engagement through the arts and culture and learning, all merging into a single space that becomes much more dynamic than just being a garden where you're planting.
Yeah. Thank you.
So yeah, great. Yeah, lots of to think about for sure. I just wanted to ask regarding the Drawdown Markham, if who actually anybody that's on this call who wants to be on the victory committee, because we're starting our committee and scheduling the meetings. So if there's anyone that wants to be on the planning committee, whether for their own community or as a whole, so that we can plan to launch for International Forest Day. That's the first one. And then secondly, if anybody wants to learn more about Victory Gardens, I'm always happy to talk about them. So
So I think I'm the only person actually on the call who's in Markham, and I'm going to put up my hand to say yes.
Okay.
And we will have a talk with, hopefully with Andre and Michael as well, who are here in Thornhill and have attended our events in the past.
And the Rotary representative as well.
Yes, absolutely. We should involve Rotary Markham.
They have to be involved because that's it's a Rotary Smart Village
Absolutely,
initiative.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And just to let you know, Joan, when I did previously connect with Jim Sandiford at Rotary Markham, he did introduce me as well to a gentleman from Rotary Ontario, which I didn't know was even a thing. But we're hoping that we can have I did, with the help of Stephanie, create this group, and you saw it in the opening presentation for UnityNet Ontario, which is the first provincial chapter of the network. So that was actually also part of partnership we're hoping to create with UnityNet California, which we created a few months ago as well, with Lisa Anise from UNESCO at the Dance Council. So we are hoping to partner with Lisa Anise to help her with her efforts at introducing art education into the schools. And I don't know what's the situation right now with, for instance, York Region School Board and arts programs, but she's been doing introducing arts, in particular dancing, of course, into the school programs. And so I'm hoping that we can do a partnership with her. And that will then involve the school board in these programs. And that's ideally what I'd like to do, is involve schools, school boards, not just the universities and colleges, but actually at the for the younger students to start getting involved in promoting these gardens.
So like I said in my presentation, the original idea, I had the Victory Tree Forest before, and I did a presentation to the E-Club and said that I wanted to plant trees to celebrate the IEEE Foundation's 50th anniversary, because you have to start somewhere. So I listen and somewhere to start. And so the president of the club, newly appointed president, is actually African. He a fantastic president. He called me and asked me if I would do the Victory Force as the 50th anniversary as the E-Club project, and that using all the Rotary. So not just the Rotary, but all of the regional working groups. So that's the African working group, the South Asian working group, the Latin American working group, and the North American working group will be also working together to plant trees.
Mm-hmm. So this I'm hoping is where we can do these partnerships between communities, and I think that's where we can go back to, for instance, Lisa or my counselor, right, and say, look, let's plan something for next March. Actually, it's a good time to approach it right now because they're doing their municipal election campaigns.
Mm-hmm.
So right at this moment, we could give her a call and say, look, would you like to do something and showcase this as Markham's contribution to achieving sustainable development?
Yeah. Okay, so I wondered if Stephanie had anything to add to my presentation.
I don't think Stephanie's on the call anymore.
Oh, okay.
So she dropped off a little bit earlier.
Oh, okay. So Andrew, you're quiet.
Only because I'm multitasking
Oh.
and preparing for my next meeting after this one.
So any thoughts?
I have many thoughts, but I just look forward to having a conversation with you after this about developing the Philippines project. That's what's on my mind.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. All right. Well, I think
Okay,
I have
well-
said everything and that I have to say.
I don't have any closing in particular remarks, but I just want to thank everybody.
Yeah,
We
if I
are
may
hoping-
have some comment, last comment from me is that I've been
Yes.
very much focusing on the Africa right now for the pool, and with the group in Uganda and Congo and Kenya growing peanut right now. So I was hoping that maybe there will be some kind of something that will be able, we can learn from your experience and everything about this. At the same time, some concept of planting the trees and so I'm hoping maybe in the future there's some kind of something that we can learn from you.
Well, I think
Me
certainly,
or
Oh, well, everybody, I guess, but
Oh.
you with all the experience in the area of agriculture, horticulture, and all these things that I'm sure we will need to learn a lot of these things because many of these people that I try to work with are usually in non-agriculture, so we have a lot of kind of learning curve type thing to learn. And
I would say to Erwan that you shouldn't be engaging with the people who are members of the 4K Club, because that's actually a program that comes out of Kenya, and I believe it's Kenya, and they are teaching young people how to grow in the schools, and so that was the program. That's the model we're using, right, for the Unity 4K clubs as well.
The group
So
is
they
not
are
only,
growers, and they're actually people from retired from the government that were in agriculture.
yeah, we only not only orphan, we're talking also maybe women with the sexual abuse, physical abuse, neglect, and all the orphans, all older people, marginalized people. All these things they are very enthusiastic as far as planting things and hoping to get some income out of it. So this is something that we have to kind of combine and strategize it. Yeah, thank you. So hopefully there will be something that will interact with
Certainly,
you.
and we'll try to set up an open call so that all these members of the UnityNet Africa and diaspora are able to interact and move forward with us as we hopefully move forward on these projects with Joan to celebrate this next March important day and project, and so that will allow us to really engage in conversations with these communities you're working with as well, like in Uganda.
Yeah.
And I know, Aaron, you had called me before with a project. I would suggest that I can introduce you to the African Working Group, because everything is regional in how we deal with projects, and so obviously you can't step on toes, right? So the only thing I would say is that it can't be a project, it has to be a business, it has to generate income. You will not get approved in any way if it's a community project in terms of providing a service. The only thing to that is, for example, I'm working with someone from, I think it's Uganda, and she wanted to do a center for health, and because a lot of women die from giving birth because of lack of care. So what I did was I helped her to connected her to the project manager for Rotary, who was working with telehealth, so that he could help her, because then it's a community. In that sense, it's a community project. But with IEEE, you have to generate income. It has to be a business proposal.
Yeah, this the one I was talking about, the three, Uganda, Congo, and Kenya, is especially trying to get sustainable. So the situation is that the investor provides some kind of seed money in our seed, fertilizer, and any work. Many of these young people, they don't have jobs, so actually they're more than happy to work on the land. So, for example, in Uganda, I have about 15 young people who come in the morning and work until just early afternoon because they cannot go beyond 12 noon because it's too hot. So hopefully the money will be returned back to the investor, it's seed and fertilizer and so on. But hopefully with the harvest time, a lot more profit that can be shared by them as a profit. So in addition, some of this income they got while working on the land, for example, they also have this additional income during harvest as part of the share that was promised, for example. But if anything, something wrong, like maybe the flood or anything, the investor is willing to lose some of this. So this is the most important aspect, is that the farmer doesn't lose any money at all. They're not worried about what happened if some of my land like flooded, for example. It doesn't matter because they're not going to lose any money. They will have some, for example, in working on the land. That's why I was asking if there is child labor, if this family can helping the parent, the child can help the parent to work on the land. They got paid, and also at the same time after harvest, they also have income, additional profit, and then the investor can get the money back to roll to another farmer, or maybe going to the next season if they still need money. So this is sustainability is really the key here. So yeah, it is potentially is poverty alleviation that we're looking for.
Yeah, so we don't deal FBSC or I mean, I'm here for our FBSC, but we don't work with young people. We work with adults. That's our target market. So adults have families, right? But we work with adults because there's lots of projects that are working with school kids and youth. So we don't mind partnering with them, but our target market is adults. For IEEE, it has to be adults for business because they have to have a business. Now we had quite a few African entrepreneurs who were very, very young. And when I say young, I think 21. And he's done a phenomenal job. He wasn't an entrepreneur, but he became one real quick. And so that's really the sign of a true entrepreneur. Do what it takes. Again, you can have a business that helps youth and kids. I'm not sure about the child labor thing. My first instinct would be that it would be a problem because kids are supposed to be in school.
Yeah, but in this case, I was talking about with the parent. So when I'm talking about child labor, the child working with the parent without being paid. So this is helping the parent. So
I understand what you mean. I'm just saying whichever way you put it, it's half a dozen or six.
Okay,
one. It's still the child's not in school. But what you're saying is the wealth of a family that it's needed. I mean, I get what you're saying. It's not that I don't understand. I'm just saying in terms of funding, it might be an issue. So, I mean, that's what kids used to do. They help their parents on farms, even in North America. Right. So
that's why there were big families back in the days
exactly.
when farmers were when farming was the #1 employment by families. They have big families. I know my father's from a family of 8 and my mother from a family of 7. So they were working.
Okay, thank you. We appreciate it.
Anyway, I see it is now 3:50. We are approaching the end of our allotted time, and I think we've got most of the people on our call have dropped now. So it's just the last 4 people. I'd like to just thank you, Joan, for coming on today to relaunch Drawdown Markham, and our monthly events. We're likely now going to have these every month on a Wednesday, as we do now, and try to bring on another guest speaker from the local community. Maybe for next week, we can bring on Michael to have a talk, or even Andre, or some other person in our local community, or
Okay.
in the GTA, or somebody from outside that can give us some insights into the different programs. For instance, someone from IEEE or from the Rotary Smart Village programs that you're working on. We can have some guest speakers coming on as well. But they
Okay.
should be relevant, of course, to the projects we're trying to implement here.
Right, right.
Thank
And
you, and have a good
likewise,
day.
you guys can come on our call as well to learn about it. So, there's that as well. So let
And
me know.
what call is that one?
The Smart Village North American Working Group. I mean, I invited Richard to come and present.
Oh, right, yes.
So if you feel that, but again, if you're presenting, it's because it's going to be a proposed project, business, right? So it's
Yeah.
not just for information. I may just tell you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank
so
you very much.
I'll definitely be continuing these conversations. And we have, again, I wanted to mention one more time the Youth Peace Week events. So starting October 4th, the Ubuntu Summit 2022 is already published. So I'll be promoting that over the next week or so. And then we have a number of events that are also going to be taking place over the next several days. And October is a really busy month for all of these celebrations, these UN days. There's World Teachers Day on October 5th. There's Migratory Bird Day on October 8th. There's World Mental Health Day on October 10th. There's Indigenous Peoples Day on October 11th. There's International Day of the Girl Child on October 12th. International Day for Disaster Risk Reduction on October 13th. I'll be doing another presentation myself for the CSF program, which I haven't done for a while. And then International Day of Rural Women on the 15th. And finally, of course, World Food Day on the 16th of October. So that's why we chose that week, because it is really packed full of different events in the UN calendar.
All right.
Thank
Nice
you.
to see
Good
everyone.
afternoon. Thank
All
you.
right.
Bye-bye.
Same here.
Thank
Love
you.
you all.
Take care.
Thank you so much. Everyone have a wonderful day.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Okay. If I can end it, that might be a good way to end it. Let's see if I can find the button.